What's up, my she-theys? Welcome back. Music Corner. As always, I'm your host. This exact shade that Camila Cabello wore to the Met Gala, like this specifically, really specifically, like this. It's too hot in here. It is September. That means it is time for the next great list in the saga of 10-year retrospectives. If you're a real numbers whiz, you'll know that 10 years ago was 2011. Back in March, we did the top 50 albums of 2011, and today we are covering the top 50 songs of 2011. Now, I have been working on this list since at least March. It took a lot of researching and compiling to put together a short list. From there, it took a lot of listening and familiarizing so that I knew all these songs in and out, and then a very painful process of narrowing the list down and formulating it into 50 tracks, but we got it done. It's going to be broken up in chunks. One of the longer videos, check the link in the description to watch it in portions if you want to. At least that's how I recommend it. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. At number 50, Licky Lee, with one of the songs that continues to define her career to this day, I Follow Rivers, a short, a little bit offbeat, but still very accessible pop cut that I still really enjoy. And at number 49, Wilco, not on one of their most loved albums of all time, one of their more loved albums in recent memory, but the track here, Art of Almost, is a really cool 7-minute compositionally experimental song with a bunch of different sounds and flavors that run through it. It's really cool. Number 48, we have got Holy Ghost, who are kind of fusing the worlds of like synth pop and garage rock to make a kind of synth punky track. Wait and see, to the point, catchy, enjoyable song. And similarly at number 47, The Vaccines deliver on the promise of their very straight up, accessible, modern pop punk delivery on the track If You Wanna, one of the better hooks you're gonna hear in all the songs we're gonna talk about today. Meanwhile, at number 46, we're going post-rock, instrumental rock with legendary Scottish post-rock band Mogwai, who released one of the best albums of their entire career in 2011, and the best track of the bunch is this one, How to Be a Werewolf. And at number 45, gotta hand it to her, Lady Gaga, Marry the Night. I've been a pretty vocal critic of Born This Way ever since it came out. It's still probably my least favorite of all of Gaga's records, but Marry the Night is one of her best songs, one of her grandest accomplishments, one of my favorite things she's done in her entire career. And number 44, we're talking The Strokes. I talked in the last video about their album Angles, how I think it's pretty underrated, but if there is one song that receives Strokes level of acclaim pretty much across the board, it's Machu Picchu. And there's a reason for that. It is tight, it is fun, it is hooky, it is infectious, and I love it. At number 43, we have Arizona thrash metal and prog metal band Vector with Tetrastructural Minds. This is a loud, brash, intense, and sort of technical by thrash standards assault on the brain, the consciousness, the mind, if you will. And yeah, I've always caught a little bit of flack for not representing metal genres as much as I perhaps should, but I cannot deny that this Vector song is a tour de force. At number 42, heavy pop pioneers Woo Life, who we talked about way back last year in my Great Artists Who Only Made One Album video, reach the heaviest, highest hitting pop of their heavy pop approach on the track We Bros, with these awesome chanting group hooks, this big expansive sound. It is just an awesome song. And at number 41, one of the grimiest, one of the weirdest and most experimental rap records in a year known for great experimental rap, Danny Brown's 30, and the song Pac Blood. It has this chorus that I promise you is just unforgettable. Besides the amazing bar, rhyme so good, thought I wrote it in Pac Blood. This thing also has references to the Pope and Sarah Palin that might make you audibly gag when you hear them, and that is the best compliment you can give to a Danny Brown song, particularly one from this era of his career. At number 40, Crystal Stilts hit us with this very dreamy but also very dreary take on post-punk and garage rock on the track Through the Floor. If lo-fi rock and dark rock music is your thing, definitely check this out because it has a pulse. It's not that dark, but it can still be pretty menacing at points. At number 39, the lead single to Bjork's album in 2011, the track Crystalline, a single that launched with an app for like the iPhone 2 or whatever, and man, if you had that app, you qualify for like a senior citizen's discount now, I think. At number 38, an even weirder cut battles the math rock, very up-tempo, sort of proggy, technical rock band, has a ton of fun on the track Ice Cream with the weird cut-up vocal samples, the fast, looping, blurry pace that this song goes at. It is, yes, obviously very technical, the instrumentation weaving in and out of each other all over the track, but it is technical in a way that is so undeniably just fun. At number 37, Yuck. Raw, indie rock, garage rock music, courtesy of Yuck. The song Get Away, their kind of breakout hit into the indie rock world. A youthful, lo-fi rager with a killer hook that is just an emotional high point on their debut album. Next up, 36, Julia Holter. Tragedy Finale, or just Finale, the closing track to her debut album, a whirlwind, tailspin song with this all-electronic instrumentation composition that sounds so weird, so dark, so surreal. It's not quite as strikingly beautiful as some of Julia's later releases, but with the lo-fi approach, the complete lack of session musicians that it takes, there is something weirdly experimental to the grandiosity of this song that I just find fascinating. And speaking of fascinating grandiosity, I forgot what number we're on. 35, Montana Roberts, Pauvre Petit. I really don't know how to pronounce this, and I tried to research it, and I couldn't find it, so I'm just doing my best. But yeah, this is an extremely experimental and intense free-form jazz piece that sees Montana opening the track with these harrowing, bloody, just blood-curdling screams that will turn off any unprepared listener. But if you see this thing through, not only is there great jazz instrumentation to be found, but also the spoken word story that Montana tells from the first-person perspective of a slave that goes into great detail and has a lot to do with the rest of the record and the whole coin saga that this series of albums is founded on. At number 34, a big, grand, folk punk ode to being depressed in the city of Phoenix, Arizona, AJJ, Big Bird. This thing is awesome. It is grand. It is extremely well performed throughout. It is the symposium climax finale of what is basically like a folk punk concept rock opera album, and it's just killer. It's just awesome. You'll never hear anything else that sounds like this. Number 33, one of the earliest and most recognized hits of the young Frank Ocean's career, the track Novacane, a wonderful little track where Frank manages to weave a narrative about a girl he meets at Coachella. She works as a dentist. They are maybe taking some Novacane, not exactly as prescribed. But with this very unique, very charming, and very memorable story involved, Frank continues to deliver a great instrumental and catchy refrains throughout. The hook to the song is incredibly infectious, and there are so many funny, memorable lyrical moments throughout. At number 32, we have a little band, you might know them, Radiohead. And they released, in 2011, this album called The King of Limbs, and the best song they dropped in 2011 is not from it. So excuse the costume change, but I've been looking for a reason to wear this shirt for a long time. It is obviously not real Radiohead merch. I bought it because I thought it was really funny that somebody would make a fake t-shirt of like one of the most little-known official Radiohead releases ever. The song we're talking about today is The Daily Mail, which was actually released as a single with the B-side, both coming from Radiohead's King of Limbs live recording, the basement sessions that came out after the original album. And yeah, what can I say about The Daily Mail? It is an explosive attack on the publication, The Daily Mail, that starts off as this very dreary, very Radiohead piano ballad, but Johnny Greenwood's composition just builds and erupts into a chaotic finale that is absolutely intense, absolutely awesome, can't get enough of it, great underrated song from Radiohead. At number 31, gotta hand it to Beyonce for writing not only one of the biggest hits of her career at that point, but one of the most endearing songs of her entire discography, even though she has continued to improve and get better and better as time goes by. Love on Top continues to be a banger, continues to be a song that I just really, really enjoy. Number 30, we have the debut single, the first song we ever heard from like indie and kind of post-punk flavored band Veronica Falls, the song Found Love in a Graveyard. This thing is a murky, weird, kooky, very raw, pseudo-love song. It has all of that wit and irony that you expect from an indie band in the late 2000s, early 2010s, but it comes with a hook that is insanely catchy and an instrumental that I find extremely compelling. It's just a great, great song. Number 29 takes us to Sweden for a little bit of minimalist electronica. I guess you could call it micro house. It's not really micro house, but trust me, we'll get there. I'm talking about The Fields, Everybody's Gotta Learn Sometime. This guy has kind of slowed down the releases over the years. I still don't think he's getting quite the respect and admiration that he deserves, because minimalist and downtempo has always been like that, sort of an island in the world of electronica, but I've always really enjoyed it. I love the music of The Field. I think this is a wonderful, wonderful song. If you give yourself to it, it will take you really cool places, and that's all I can promise. Number 28, we're getting a little John Darnielle and the Mountain Goats with one of their kookier, better songs from a weirdly forgotten era of their career, the track Damn These Vampires. Yes, it's safe to say that the Mountain Goats have not always written the catchiest hooks, the most earworm songs of all of the indie and folk parallel bands that they have as contemporaries, but this one is absolutely that. Funny story, compelling lyrical metaphor that adds a little bit of context to the stuff that John Darnielle is saying. It's not as silly as it sounds, but it does have that great hook, that great sing-along, damn these vampires hook to it that I just find infectious. 27, Business, Tune Yards. Man, I love this track. Just picked up the new repress of this album on Record Store Day, and man, it kicks so much ass. The sonic variety, the whirlwind, tailspin sonic approach and intensity that you will find on a Tune Yards record, on this song is incredible. There's so many different world music influences coming together into something that is intense, hard-hitting, incredibly catchy, and just awesome. At 26, we have one of the murkier, more emotionally dense indie rock cuts on the list, the Girls track Vomit. This is just a raw bearing of one's soul into a track. It has this composition that works in all of these weird and winding ways to work through its refrains, but the results are just awesome. And even though it's not something that I think most people would say is conventionally catchy, I find myself returning to this song over and over again. I just cannot get enough of it. Number 25, Liturgy, Hunter Hunt Hendrix, the closing track to their 2011 album Aesthetica, Harmonia. This song is crazy. This is transcendental black metal at its most galaxy brain, at its most highbrow. It's conceptual, but it is also extremely intense, fast-paced. It is just a lot to take in, but when you revisit it, when you let it reveal itself to you over multiple listens, there is so much to love here. This is not simply music that is bashing you over the head with a hammer. It is doing so intelligently. Number 24, as noted, Micro House was coming. We are talking Nicholas Jar, Space is Only Noise. If you can see, the centerpiece to his debut album, Space is Only Noise. This thing is an awesome, spacey, micro house track that represents a bit of a thematic and canonical shift on the album, though it's hard to glean that from the lyrics. The lyrics on this track, however, out of context of the rest of the record, are still fantastic. There is some genuinely kind of like funny and really charming lyrical moments, which you're probably not used to hearing in such an abstract piece of music, but at the core of this is a great instrumental with so much detail, so much texture, everything that Nicholas Jar would go on to do that was so great and that I have given out so much praise for over the past couple of years. You can see it in the making here. And at number 23, perhaps the catchiest song of the entire bunch, which is kind of funny because it's a little bit of an offbeat synth pop song, certainly not like a big hit. Talking about craft spells with After the Moment, I have a feeling that a lot of people watching the video will not have ever heard this song before, but be warned, if you listen to it once, you're going to want to listen to it a million billion times, and you're going to be thinking about the hook for the rest of the day, because I've been thinking about it for like 7 months. It's a really, really good song, really, really catchy, great instrumental. Everything about it is just synth pop and indie pop bliss. 22 comes from the Black Keys' El Camino, one of the records that inspired a lot of eye rolls at my last list. Trust me, I know. I check my DMs. I know what you guys think about the Black Keys. And I know what you'll think about me including this here, but this is a good song, goddammit. It starts off as this gentle, swaying sort of Delta ballad, the stuff that you'll find on the back half of the Black Keys' newest Delta Cream Covers album. But then, around the halfway point, it just erupts into this ripping alt-rock rager that is bluesy, that is fuzzy, that is hard-hitting, and for the track to seamlessly and successfully make that transition is just incredibly impressive to me. This is one of the Black Keys songs that I continue to come back to from this era more than anything else. And just outside the top 20, a little Kung Fu Kenny from his debut studio album, Section 80, the track ADHD. It sees Kendrick sort of retrospecting on his generation, on people who are his age, the ADHD epidemic, the crack crisis of the 1980s. There is a lot of heavy stuff going into this track, but ultimately the song is about, you know, Kendrick meeting a girl who's his age and understanding that because of that fact alone, they share some very particular things about themselves. At number 20, What I Fear is another one of the more forgotten songs on this list, unless you're a huge Pitchfork reader, the KDB song, Katie on a Mission. Now, 2011 is sort of the point where I really come into play personally in my personal journey of musical discovery. I would say probably over half of the songs we are going to talk about today I heard in 2011 and have really truly had a decade to make my impressions of, and this is one of those that I probably heard about it from Pitchfork, who is a little bit notorious for dishing out praise to KDB, what not a lot of publications will, and yeah, I have grown to just adore this thing. It is a slick combination of pop and almost dubstep electronica, though it's often not as intense as you might expect a dubstep song to be. It just has dubstep influences, but it really doesn't sound that dated. Like, electropop hasn't gone anywhere, and while it's gotten a little bit more instrumentally slick and reserved in the nostalgic 1980s world of really, really contemporary electropop, KDB is still such a breath of fresh air. I still return to her debut album every once in a while, even though not all the tracks have aged as well as this one has. And yeah, I just find this song to be kind of one of the forgotten pop greats of the 2010s. Number 19, The Horrors, the song Still Life. Now, I know when your band is called The Horrors, and perhaps your most well-known song, Sea Within a Sea, is this muttering 10-minute dark gothy post-punk epic. It's not the kind of track you would expect to hear in Still Life. This thing is like a glammed up 80s, it's still a rock song, but it almost sounds like a synth pop or almost a new wave track with its hook, with its eruption of instrumentation. I really don't think you'd have to change that much about the track for like Simple Minds or the Psychedelic Furs to take a crack at it. But yeah, it's great. Great hook, great instrumental mix that sets up one high impact moment after another. I just think it's awesome, and I cannot get enough of it 10 years later. Number 18, you probably knew we were going to talk about it. If there's one song coming into a video about 2011 that you pretty much know you're going to have to cover at some point, it is this one, the biggest hit of the year and one of the biggest hits of the entire decade, Gotye and Kimbra's Somebody That I Used to Know. And no, this song is not a fluke hit. It comes from a pretty good record. Gotye is a talented songwriter and performer. This is just him operating at his most extravagantly pop-friendly stage of his entire career, teaming up with Kimbra, who has a few hits under her belt here by 2021, proved to be one of the most genius, galaxy-brained moves of Gotye's entire career, because the song they formed together is this fantastic and very bitter breakup song. It's so surprising to me that a song that is this lyrically jaded became the big hit that it did, but man, this song is awesome. That hook just soars. Gotye and Kimbra sound so great together in this kind of unconventional, but in a sense also sort of conventional at the end, duet. This is a duet pop hit in 2011 about a messy breakup and lack of communication, but you can honestly ignore all of that because it's so catchy that you can just sing along. Number 17. It is hard to get a better, more talented group of individuals on a single song than Jay-Z, Mr. West, Kanye Tuda, and Frankie Ocean on the song No Church in the Wild. This thing's a rumbling, bad-ass kick-off point for Jay-Z and Kanye's collaborative album, Watch the Throne. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't like this record in retrospect, don't think it's as good as everybody else does, and maybe there's a little bit of truth to that. In this era, Kanye West could really do no wrong post My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, so it's no surprise that this thing was gassed up upon release. But No Church in the Wild really does deserve the reputation that it has. I mean, if you were around and conscious of music at this time, you know Frank Ocean's hook to this song. You have to. It's basically essential. And as good as Jay-Z is on the front end, and as often on Watch the Throne as Jay-Z's outperforming absolutely everybody, this song really, really does have one of the premier Kanye moments on the album when he comes in late on the second half of the record with this intense flow and delivery, some of the best Kanye vocals that he raps in that very, very gruff demeanor. It's just kick-ass. This song rules. Number 16, Shabazz Palaces and Company with Swerve. Sorry, the track's actually called Swerve, The Reaping of All That Is Worthwhile, Noir Notwithstanding. Sheesh, making me glad I didn't cover Idler Wheel. So yes, Ishmael, Butler, and Company, Shabazz Palaces. This is sort of a posse cut. There's a number of different rappers who rap across this record. There is a beat switch up. There is a lot going on here, thematically, rhythmically, lyrically, sonically, all of the adverbs that we try and use to describe how complicated music is exist within Swerve. But you really wouldn't know it on first listen because it is so easy to fall in love with how effortlessly smooth this song is. Seriously, I feel like I could rap the entire thing from memory as an extremely white person just based on the fact that it comes so easy to everybody involved. These lyrics are just slick. It is so well written. The performances are so smooth. The beats are just so crisp. They pop. They're so easy to ride on. This song really represents everything that made Shabazz Palaces and the record Black Up so special. And I will save everyone the embarrassment of me trying to rap Swerve. 15. One of the premier pop rap hits of the decade from the defining pop rap artist of the 2010s, and as we saw this week, into the 2020s, Drake, with the song Headlines. I know that people like to hate on Drake, and yeah, that's fine. His albums are pretty bloated, and they're full of bad songs. There's plenty of reasons to hate on Drake in 2021, but man, in 2011, Take Care, absolute fire. Not only is it one of the defining pop rap and commercial rap albums of the entire 2010s, but it spawned a number of huge hits and a number of endearing cult classics that hip-hop fans and Drake fans still absolutely adore to this day. Now, Headlines is kind of both of those. This was a pretty commercially successful song. I think a lot of people who maybe have never heard the entirety of Take Care have probably heard Headlines on its own, and it is also a huge Drake fan favorite. When you hang out in musical spaces, you will see people talking about plenty of the deep cuts on Take Care, like The Real Her, Crew Love, even Marvin's Room, and Headlines is among all of these greatly respected and well-loved songs in the Take Care track list and in Drake's discography. For good reason. It is slick, it is catchy, it is braggadocious, it is everything a pop rap song with this caliber of grandiosity needs to be in order to pull off the bragging that it's selling. Headlines does it flawlessly. At number 14, I know I said this in the albums video, but a genre you're probably not expecting to talk much about in 2011, post-hardcore, the modern style of post-hardcore that a lot of people are really, really not into, but man, La Dispute just redefined everything that a post-hardcore act is supposed to be or can be with King Park. Yeah, this song is insane. This song sees frontman Jordan Dreyer kind of putting himself into the body of like a ghostly apparition so that he can watch over these events that happen. There's a gang shooting, a child is accidentally shot, and then we transport into the life of the shooter, who is obviously very remorseful, regretful, sorrowful. There's a warrant out for his arrest. He's staying in a hotel room. I won't spoil the whole song because the story is really a reason to dive in, and the subject matter, for how intense it is met with a lyrical and instrumental delivery that is verbose and up to the task, up to the challenging task of tackling this extremely difficult subject matter, and the result is just this riotous, explosive portrayal of a very tragic loss of human life being observed from the perspective of a ghost who clearly values life a lot. It's just a lot to think about and a lot to process for a genre that always dabbles in this vein of edginess, but it's never this real, it's never this heartfelt. I really can't say enough about King Park for really breaking down expectations in terms of post-hardcore and just being an incredible and visceral experience. Number 13, Giles Corey, solo project, an offshoot of Have a Nice Life fame, as we talked about in the last video, with the song No One Is Ever Going to Love Me. This is a long, harrowing, and as you can tell from the title, very depressing outing from Giles Corey. The track is extremely stripped back initially. It is very quiet, very meditative, and very poised despite its dreary, depressive sound palette. And right towards the end, right when you're like no longer expecting it anymore, this near ambient passage just erupts into this rustic, faulty blitz of instrumentation and these shouted vocals that just let out all of that angst and that loneliness and that depression, and it just makes for a remarkable moment. I can see why a lot of people would listen to a couple minutes of this track and think they've got the gist of it, but every second of setup on this song is not only engaging but necessary for the payoff to achieve its highest point of intensity, and it does so. Number 12, a combination that seems kind of crazy in 2021. Not that these artists have beefed or anything, they just seem to have drifted apart so much stylistically, although I suppose it was just as weird in 2011. Pusha T, Tyler the Creator, team up for Trouble on My Mind. And yes, this thing has a Neptune's beat that is hard as shit. Pusha T goes in on this song. I cannot express to you enough how much I love the Pusha T verses on this song. And that's normally the kind of thing where you would say, I don't really want to invite a guest onto this thing because they're probably not going to live up to it. And Tyler the Creator has never been the most hard-hitting, gangster-type, cold-blooded rapper of all time. That's never really been his lane, but he brings it on this song. He sort of borrows and recontextualizes the flow that opens up his song Yonkers, which is, you know, a fine song. The lyrics do a lot better here, and they set him up for a bit of a grimier verse than you'd expect from him. It's not quite as edgelordy like he was in this Goblin era of his career. And yeah, he's kooky, he's funny, his delivery is pretty intense, and he fits in on the song. The whole thing is like a perfect melding of Pusha T and Tyler's styles. They meet in the middle with a song that is fun, that is hard-hitting, extremely catchy, incredibly memorable, and I can't stress enough how great of a job the Neptunes do bringing it all together. Pharrell, Chad Hugo, they're the best at this stuff. This song rules. Number 11, just outside the top 10, the genre everyone loves to hate, Sophistopop, but, you know, they hate Sophistopop in the 70s and 80s, not anymore. Pretty much everybody likes Destroyer, the record Kaput, and the song Chinatown. Yes, this thing is excellent, well-written, wonderfully performed, sophisticated indie pop music that I just cannot get enough of. I just love Dan Behar and Destroyer, and this is one of the best eras of Destroyer's career. To follow this up with Poison Season is unbelievable. But fangirl aside, yeah, Chinatown is just a great song. The verses build and work together in this really wonderful way to rise up to the Chinatown hook. Given how reserved the hook is, at least from Dan's standpoint, vocally, it still feels like such a triumphant moment on the song, such a grand moment, and the instrumental does not go above and beyond. It does exactly what it needs to do to perfectly support the wonderful songwriting and the development of the composition throughout this track. It is just lyrically, sonically, very beautiful, very poised, and pretty much the textbook definition of why I and so many other people cannot get enough of Destroyer. So, top 10, kicking it off, we have number 10, perhaps the most singularly acclaimed song of 2011. I think you have a little bit of a debate as to whether the album it comes from is the most acclaimed album of 2011, but its title track, Fleet Fox's Helplessness Blues, is one that you will see on every 2011 list. And I think that's because from the most off the beaten path, alternative, abstract, experimental places to the most mainstream, contemporary places, everyone recognizes what a monumental accomplishment in songwriting this is. Robin Pecknold is collecting an entire generation's wearied woes about individualism and explaining in catchy, tight, well-written refrains, incredibly memorable refrains, these grand concepts, these unspoken things that so many people around his, and to some extent my age, experience. This thing is an attack on the lack of ability that Robin's generation was given to be part of something greater than themselves, like so many generations before them were given, or even so far as implied to take part in. So he reminisces on working till he's sore at an orchard. And it all, when you think about it, really kind of gives an almost boomer-like impression. But when you really dig into the lyrics and the details of what Pecknold is saying, his sentiment almost takes aim at the people who took that away from his generation. I come back to the lyric about men in dark hallways who determine his future for him as a fact that this is not merely a cry into the abstract about unfairness. This is not merely him singing helplessness blues. He is begging for an explanation or an opportunity, someone to fix this, and you would never know it from how wonderfully rich and smooth everything about the song is. From the amazing array of instrumental performances to Robin's crisp vocals, this is Fleet Foxes at their absolute best. This is everything that they do well, and even though they don't manage to pull it off all the time, when they come together and make one of the greatest tracks of their career, like Helplessness Blues, it's hard for indie music to get any better than this. Number 9, the man of the hour every hour, here on Music Corner. You knew he'd be here. I'm probably going to give his new record that comes out in a couple weeks an amazing review, because I give everything he does an amazing review, and it has nothing to do with bias or preconceived notions. I just think James Blake is an incredible, incredible singer and songwriter, and he has been so since 2011, as we heard on his album, his self-titled album, and on this song, The Wilhelm Scream. Yes, this thing rules. It has ruled since the moment I first heard it. It ruled when they used it on Entourage. That's how old I am and how old this song is. I remember when they used it on Entourage, which is kind of a weird thing when you think back on this like kooky indie tronica, extremely reserved, like extremely fucking reserved electronica song with one refrain that James sings over and over again with this weird, glitchy, pseudo-ambient, bright wall of sound that morphs and bends behind him. This is a weird song to be in Entourage. But once again, I think it's just a testament to James Blake's incredible creativity, musical and vocal virtuosity, and how amazing and groundbreaking and insanely incredible his debut album is. Number 8 comes to us from one of the breakout artists of 2011, one of the most insane bands of the 2010s. You know him, you love him. It's Death Grips with Takyon, Death Yawn. This song is about tachyons, which is this idea of particles that can theoretically move faster than the speed of light. This was a big deal when the song came out, is the only reason I know this. And the experience of the song is sort of intended to mimic the sensation and the energy of moving faster than the speed of light. And yeah, they pull it off. From the absolutely insane drumming on the track, it sounds like a Hella song, but if you just like threw it in a washing machine, it got less technical and more just raw, insane, directionless eruption of drums, over which MC Ride is screaming his goddamn brains out, but he's doing it with such a tight, catchy, compelling flow. It's incredible. And if you hear this song in 2021, if you somehow never heard this song before, it may not occur to you what made this so groundbreaking at the time, because you've probably heard records that took a lot of influence from Death Grips, but this shit came out of nowhere. Like, there was, I can't even imagine anything that sounded like this. Like, the hardest thing that we were bumping in 2010 was Hard in the Paint, and 2011 comes around, and Death Grips are kicking hip-hop's ass. And this thing is kind of an overnight sensation. It comes from the Death Grips EP that sort of debuted the band before Ex-Military came out, but once Ex-Military came out, Guillotine was big, Full Classic Death Moon was big, and Takyon was big. At number 7, we have a crazy song, a great, dark, meditative, indie kind of rock song, a song that just fucking creeps in the most visceral way. Timber Timbers' Black Water. Now, if you listen to this song, it may sound almost like pleasant or bright in nature at some points. The hook is extremely memorable for music that sounds like this. But once you listen to this song in its entirety, the instrumental progression and the way it just morphs and moves in the most guttural way, the most patient and slow and grating way, it is absolutely miraculous. This song makes me want to throw up, and I mean that as the biggest compliment that I can possibly give it. Like, I cannot listen to this song and stand still. My body would start tingling. It's just so, it just creeps in such a just methodical way through its composition. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I just don't know what else to say. It's so hard to describe the visceral effect that this song can have on you if you really give yourself up to it. I think once you get towards the end of it, you'll realize what you've been experiencing, and it just hits you like a fucking train. At number 6, we're dipping into the world of ambient. Now, ambient music typically relies on track lists to strengthen each of the cuts, or some thematic concept that makes the songs better within the context of an album. That's why we're not seeing any Tim Hecker or a Caretaker on this list, for instance. But who would have thought One O Tricks Point Never breaks the mold with Replica? And yeah, this is just a short ambient composition. There is nothing insanely thematic to it. There is nothing like life-changing about it. It is just utterly fucking beautiful. This song is gorgeous. The sound play is dynamic, wonderfully compelling, just incredible. Amazing, amazing, incredible, fantastic, beautiful, wonderful, great, great, great. Okay, top 5. This is already way too long. We're gonna get through it. A$AP Rocky, Peso, No suspense needed. This is really the breakout song for one of the definitive hip-hop artists of the 2010s. Rocky, on this track, does everything that he needs to do to prove himself to be one of the great rapping pop stars of his era. The smooth delivery, the infectious hook, the beat has a killer sample in it that is incredibly memorable. I can't express how smooth this song is. A$AP Rocky, from start to finish, is just delivering these charming, catchy, focused lyricism and bars that I can't get enough of. Peso could be 20 minutes long. If he can keep up the capacity that he writes across these 2 minutes and change, it could be a goddamn hour long for all I care. It's amazing. Number 4, The World of Vaporwave, Macintosh Plus, with the Lisa Frank 420 modern computing song. Yes, this is an interpolation of Diana Ross's It's Your Move. I say interpolation, but pretty much the entire song is built around this original song. The original slowed and reverbed, the kids might call it, the biggest hit, the peak in popularity, cultural significance of Vaporwave. This is an utterly infectious reimagining of the song, and I know that people have their takes on Vaporwave. Its heavy use on samples, whether it is creatively authentic, but to come up with this, to start with nothing, and create this whole genre of Vaporwave and all of the offsuits. You gotta hand it to Ramona, to Vectroid, to the artist behind Macintosh Plus. This is an incredible achievement. It has spawned a song that has maintained its cultural relevancy to this day. As kooky and as weird and as internet-based of a genre as it is, so many people still know this track. It's a testament to how great it is. And I'm going to link the Spotify playlist in this video. This song is not on Spotify. Neither is Death Grips, Takyon. So I'll just throw in Guillotine and one of Ramona Vectroid's other songs in their place. Number 3, Bronze Medal, another act that I think most people knew was going to show up on here. The Weeknd, who dropped a trio of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful mixtapes in 2011. House of Balloons is obviously the creative peak of this era, and perhaps of his entire career, which obviously stands to reason. The title track, House of Balloons, Glass Table Girls, is a remarkable achievement in dark, meditative R&B excellence. This is a 2-part song. It's hard to pick a favorite part. I love the Susie and the Banshees interpolation. I love the lyrical metaphor that Abel uses about the tables, the titular tables of Glass Table Girls. And I love everything about it. I love the dark, very murky, very meditative stylings of R&B that Abel essentially pioneered on this run of mixtapes. This song, which I think was just named on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time when that came out, for good reason, because it rules. At number 2, we've got an indie rock rager, courtesy, of course, of one Will Toledo, Car Seat Headrest. Many of you will know they released this little album, Twin Fantasy, in 2011, the pioneer of Bandcamp rock, and one of the records I talked about in my Internet Core video. And yes, while I did state in the last 2011 video that I prefer a lot of the remake versions of these tracks that show up on the 2018 version of the record, if there is one song that benefits from the raw, lo-fi, brash aesthetic of the original, it is the remarkable emotional centerpiece to the record, the epic, expansive Beach Life in Death. This is an amazing coming-of-age song. When you think about lyrically trying to put together all of the angst and all of the emotions that Will is feeling as a person and as a songwriter, fitting them in 12 minutes is kind of an amazing accomplishment, because not only does he fit all of this lyrical angst into the song, but he crafts it in a way that is so compositionally rewarding, so expansive, and makes times for all of these great moments, these great instrumental solos, this glitchy breakdown that happens at the end of it, and just to go on a list of things Will Toledo is experiencing is incredible. We start with him dropping his boyfriend/not-boyfriend off at the train station, the angst of seeing him leave. He wants to hug the train. This is just one of many lyrical moments that I haven't been able to get out of my head since I first heard this record, and I really do mean that. I love the moment where Will wonders how long they have to have known and been hanging out with each other to be boyfriends. I love the moment where he just calls out about not wanting to go insane, not wanting to have schizophrenia. He's just psyched himself out so much at this point in his life. But the thesis of the song, the record, and perhaps Will Toledo's entire career comes in the whole concept of humanity and the idea of humans. He says that he's incapable of being human, but he's incapable of being inhuman. They say we hated humans. We wanted to be humans. This whole gripping rationale, this back and forth, inescapable back and forth that Will Toledo has with his own humanity is at the center of this song. It is so youthful. It just erupts out of this composition. And this is an indie rock coming of age masterpiece that new generations of indie rock and lo-fi rock fans will be relating to and coming back to over and over and over again for a very, very long time. I think this thing is ostensibly timeless. So yeah, as epic as number 2 is, number 1's got to be pretty epic too. And while it is certainly not as long, winding a composition, and it does not try to tell as grand a story, if emotion, vibe, sensation, and feeling are what you are focusing on from the musicality of a song you're looking for from 2011, it is impossible to go wrong with anything other than the year's greatest achievement, M83, Midnight City. Even if you don't recognize this song by name, I promise you, you've heard it. It comes on the back of a decade of unreal success for M83. Not that these guys were selling out stadiums or having number 1 records or anything, but the last 3 M83 records before Hurry Up We're Dreaming are each among the best of the entire 2000s, and they kicked the 2010s off with an absolute tour de force masterpiece double album, concept album in Hurry Up We're Dreaming. But you really don't need to know any of that big brain shit to appreciate Midnight City. It's so utterly infectious. And not just that the refrains are hooky, which they are, not just that the instrumental is gripping and memorable, which it obviously is, but everything assembled together creates this intoxicating, youthful, nocturnal vibe that is absolutely unforgettable. If you've ever rolled your windows down when you're driving home from some kind of party at night and blasted this song, you are in the element that it was meant to be played in. And if you've never done that, you can just listen to this song alone in your bedroom and it'll make you feel like that. That's how gripping and compelling the track is from an instrumental standpoint. And of course, you've got to talk about that vocal line that sounds like synths that I've read in different places is just heavily manipulated vocals. It is absolutely incredible. It is the core hook of the song, and it completes this masterful impressionistic vibe. It really does achieve that promise that so many dreamy songs make of being surreal, of being larger than life, and it does so without any of the necessary abstraction. This thing isn't larger than life because you can't tell what's going on. You can hear every single tiny detail within the instrumentation on this song, and it's just so expertly, masterfully composed and arranged that it becomes completely irresistible. It sounds beyond this world in the absolute best way. This is a once-in-a-generation song that has achieved so much crossover success specifically because of that inability to ignore it, to look away from it, or to resist it. It is intoxicating, infectious, masterful, and it is the best song of 2011. No debate. No decision needed. I did not quibble over this one at all. It was obvious out the gate. Midnight City is the way you gotta go. So yes, that's that. I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but I talked for so long. I'm gonna stop talking now. I'll be back. Update at the end of October, but I'll probably make something else before that. I've got an idea for a new series that I might start if I can figure out how to light it. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching.